There were some rather large egos. I happened to be perfect, but everyone else is just sort of big-headed twerp.
Series 3, we took a big old gamble in the beginning that we ended up with such a small cast, because there'd been sort of 5 of them, hadn't there? There'd been Melchett and Nursey and Queenie and Percy and Baldric and Rowan, and then this time, suddenly, there was just Baldric, Rowan and Hugh.
It was the casting of Prince George alongside Blackadder and Baldric that brought new life to the show. The role went to an actor who since quickened the pulse of America.
It's a trial, John, you've no idea.
Have you learned anything about medicine? Can you remember all the stuff?
For about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, I can hold it in my head for about 20 minutes, and for about 20 minutes, I could probably do a coronary bypass operation. So if you catch me at the right hour, then by all means, have an aortic infarction at my feet, and I'll fix it. But if it's the wrong hour, you're a goner.
I have to say it's my favourite series, Hugh, that one, and it's because of you. And I remember saying to you on the set that one day you are going to be such a world-famous actor.
Stop it.
I told you.
Stop it. I bet you say that to all the actors in Blackadder, 3rd series.
Hugh's always very self-deprecating about it, but that's the kind of bloke he is. He always says, oh, I just shouted a lot.
I'm a gay bachelor, Blackadder. I'm a roarer, a rogerer, a gorger and a puker. I can't marry, I'm young, I'm firm-buttocked, I'm...
Broke.
Well, yes, I suppose so.
You used to get quite stressed when you were the Prince Regent.
I came pre-stressed.
Right.
There was no stress that was added. I mean, that's what I do. I don't know why. I wish I didn't. I wish I could sort of relax and enjoy things more, but I don't. I worry about them.
Just occasionally one can say, now, come on, Hugh, is the entire idea of your misery for us to spend the next 3 hours telling you how great you are? Because whether or not that was the idea, that is the end result.
Prince George is shy and just pretends to be bluff and crass and unbelievably thick and giddy. Whilst deep down, he is a soft little marshmallowy, piglety type of creature.
But I do love the Prince Regent. I love his attempt to be better all the time. I think that's one of the things that's so likeable about him, is he's always trying to improve himself. And we know how doomed it is. I mean, that vacant, panicky look in his eye, it's bliss.
I terminated my uninterrupted categorization of the vocabulary of our post, Norman tongue.
I don't know what you're talking about, but it sounds damn saucy, you lucky thing.
But, I mean, people fought for their patch. You know, they didn't. Nobody just sort of towed the line and stood where they were told to stand and do what they were told to do. Everyone stood up for themselves and for their characters. Let's just say it was very free.
Yes.
And creative.
But Richard wouldn't have said that.
No. Just read it out, I think was Richard's. Just read it out.
They would literally sit around for the entire time discussing the script, and I know we would sometimes say, but actually if you stood up and tried to act this script out, you might find out things about it. I hate to raise this, having worked on it for 3 hours, but do you think it's a very good joke, this orders, Hugh, since you suggested it?
This was nothing to do with me.
It was.
It was nothing to do, it was up on the board. I just read it out.
We'd always said that more than anything, what we'd like to do would be to create a series that was very claustrophobic, where the 5 or 6 of us who were the performers were trapped in a space. And what better way to feel that notion of claustrophobia than in the trenches in the First World War?
Hear the words I sing, war's a horrid thing. So I sing, 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 ding-a-ling-a-ling.
It was a really peculiar and bold thing to try and make a comedy out of, but I think ultimately a very sympathetic and respectful one, even though the characters were absurd and moronic at times. It never sort of disrespected their courage or their sacrifice, I think.
The world weariness of Blackadder was something kind of extraordinary, it was something kind of beaten down. He was not necessarily going to win all the time, and knew that he wasn't, which gave it a kind of darker edge, I thought.
Young people playing old people is very funny. Because I was in my 20s and I was playing a general, it was somehow funnier than if I'd been the right age to be a general, which I now am.
And it had to be a 30-year-old playing a 60-year-old. If it had been a 6-year-old actor, it would have been different. And it wouldn't have been, it might have been funny, but in a different way. It wouldn't have worked the way Melchett worked.
It's the authority of youth.
Slightly red cheeks I remember having, because he was constantly puffing and blowing and constantly I had in my head that he had piles, so that when I sat down, like that, all the time, this strange noises and bleats and bars and things. It's an extraordinary gift to play a character who isn't afraid of no one, who is in supreme command.
For all the comedy bawling and bleating, the final episode saw events take an extraordinary turn as Captain Blackadder and his troops braced themselves for the inevitable.
Don't forget your stick, Lieutenant.
Right there, sir. Wouldn't want to face a machine gun without this.
I just remember feeling, the impending doom for my character. I remember feeling this strange sort of knot in the pit of my stomach. And it was the first time, as an actor, that I had felt the predicament of my character. I was going to die at the end of the week.
It was much more like a serious play or a drama, as all the comedy kind of melts and fades out of it and becomes sadder and sadder and more tragic and eventually almost unbearably moving and sad. It's valedictory.
I hope no one was left in any doubt of the respect I think everybody on the team had for the sacrifices made and the honour of the people involved. But it was a damn silly war, and if ever there was a subject, requiring of satire, it's people, no matter how honourably and no matter how nobly, blindly going to war.
Company, 1 pace forward. On the signal, company will advance.
Good luck, everyone.
In those days, you had to get out of the studio by 10 o'clock. If you didn't, the electricians would pull the switch. At 10 to 10, we finished filming in our normal studio. We then had to race across to the other studio, and it was then that we saw this No Man's Land set for the first time, and it looked dreadful.
Okay, well, this apparently is the original footage from the very last scene of Blackadder 4 where they all go over the top, and I haven't seen this since 1989. They're only actually running, 15 yards before they hit the barbed wire, and then they all stand around looking like lemons and then pretend to die, and it's very embarrassing.
Pretty unconvincing, isn't it?
Now, they've done a close-up here. There's a ghastly shot of Hugh and Tim and Baldrick dying. Rowan pretending to die but keeping his eyes open. And he's getting up and he looks cross.
Me looking decidedly miffed.
And that's the end of it.
I can remember coming away thinking, I've no idea how we're going to end the series. I thought they would have to end it before we actually went over the top.
It was one of the lowest points, I think, of my television career, thinking the end of this amazing series, and I just screwed it up.
As it was so obvious that we had so little material to work with, we had to really slow the pictures right down in order to stretch them in time. But that produced an incredibly good effect with the flashes which were going over on the right of the picture and the debris that falls over Rowan's character. In slow motion, this suddenly achieved a grandeur which was not obvious in the full motion.
So then the assistant editor says, what if we slowed the sound down as well? And suddenly we get this is slow motion sound effects, and it starts to get really quite spooky.
Having got Rowan virtually obscured by the debris, to go to the next shot where we are now in a blank no man's land wide shot, our characters are seen virtually to melt into the landscape.
And then somebody, I think it was the PA, said, "Oh, we should get some poppies. What if I think?" And somebody got very excited and ran upstairs to the picture library and got a still, a transparency of some poppies. Last decision, some bright spark in sound. Let's put some birdsong on it. Even in the edit, it was obviously one of the most moving things that I had ever seen.
In the 19 years since the series ended, the team have each gone on to achieve greatness in their own right. But for all of them, there remains something special about the Blackadder era.